Well, hello there, and welcome back to another episode of The Metagame. I am your host, Chaz Marler's evil twin, and today on The Metagame, we're going to be talking about convention survival, because we're in the middle of convention season. So as soon as I get the word from the chat that everyone can actually hear what I'm saying, we'll start talking about convention survival tips. And hey, I hear that the audio and video is good, so I think we're about ready to go. So here's what we're going to do, and here's how this show works. The Metagame is a show about not only talking about board games, but also talking about board games. Sometimes the board game culture, sometimes what it means to be a podcaster or a reviewer. And today we're going to be talking about going to those board gaming events, conventions, whether it's more of the event type like Gen Con or Origins, or the giant game day type like Dice Tower Con or BGG Con. And so what I've done is I've compiled a list of some of the tips that I've either come up with or had my incredibly wise wife teach me during my travels to conventions over the last couple of years. So the purpose of this episode, what I want to do, is I'm going to read off a few off my own list, and then we'll bounce over to the chat area, the YouTube live chat, and we'll see what kind of tips the YouTube chat has for going to board game conventions. So if you have a tip that you want to share on the show about surviving conventions, go ahead and post it in the chat using our friendly neighborhood hashtag TMG. Add hashtag TMG to your YouTube chat comment, because I'm going to use my web browser's search tool to highlight the chat statements that have that in there, which will kind of bring them to the top, and I'll see those. And so those are the ones that I will focus on during the show. Now, so let's talk about conventions. I just got back from Dice Tower Con last week, and I'll be going to the big one, Gen Con, which is just a circus. They estimate 60 to 70,000 people are going to be at Gen Con the first week of August. So we're smack dab in the middle of convention season here, which means for a lot of people that are going to these, even if you're going to just one, it means a lot of travel. So now, anytime you talk about surviving a convention, the main piece of advice that you're going to receive is the 6-2-1 rule, and everyone's heard of that, so I'm not going to go on this too much. I want to talk about more unique, specific type of things, but just in case you haven't heard it, the 6-2-1 rule at a convention states make sure that you get 6 hours of sleep a night, at least 2 meals a day, and you shower at least once a day. And I think that's incredibly good advice. I don't see how you could do a convention without doing those things. And I think that goes along with my first piece of advice, which is when going to conventions, pace yourself. When I went to BGG Con last November with a group of friends, we pretty much I think we pretty much shut down around 11 p.m., got to bed by 12:30 or 1 each night. But I remember the last day of the convention, one of my friends was like, well, this is my last day before I travel back, so I've been pacing myself this whole time, but tonight I'm not going to bed. I'm going to sleep on the plane. And he stayed up till about 4 to 5 in the morning, and then he went and got on his plane. But he was able to do that last push and really squeeze as much as he could out of that last day, because he paced himself going up to that last day, and he didn't try to stay up all night, every night. So whether or not you think staying up at all, any of the nights is a good idea, whether or not you agree with that at all, having paced himself beforehand really, I think, was a smart move. All right, so let me talk about the first thing on my list, and then we'll pop over and we'll go back and forth. The first thing, when I go to a convention, and when I travel, and a lot of these have to do with travel. Let me actually kind of give you an idea of where I'm at. I'm in Oregon, so I'm on the West Coast. So whether I go to BGG Con, Origins, Gen Con, Dice Tower Con, or any of these larger conventions, I'm on a plane for at least 5 hours. And more than likely, I have to change planes at least once. And although a lot of people are in that same boat of having to travel. So a lot of these might be geared towards people who also have to travel to a convention as well, in addition to the convention itself. But the very first, probably the most important thing that I've learned to take with me and have available at a board gaming convention is this guy right here, an overshirt. And there's a couple of reasons why. And I was walking around with an overshirt tied around my waist at at Dice Tower Con last week, which is in Florida in July. So it was like, I don't know, 80, 90,000 degrees outside. And so at first it might seem counterintuitive to, take an overshirt, but this is a critical piece of board game convention survival, because not just in Florida, but everywhere, even in Oregon, every board game convention that I've been in, you have the big gaming area, the big ballroom, the hall where the gaming's taking place. Just to the nature of the number of human bodies that are in there, they have the AC turned on and cranked up, especially if they're during the summer, which is nice and comfortable, except if you're sitting there stationary at a table, after a while, it starts to get really cold, especially if there's a fan that is actually blowing on you. It gets freezing. So even though it's the middle of summer and it's 1,000,000 degrees outside, having an overshirt with you that you can, if you're not using it, take the arms and tie it around your waist and then slip it on, that extra layer to just block out the air conditioning can make the difference between sitting there miserable with a runny nose and actually being able to warm up when needed and focus on the game. The other reason that overshirt is so important, I think, is traveling on the plane. It gives me a built-in little blanket if the plane has the same thing with the air blowing on me, or wadding it up and using it as a little pillow, or a neck brace or something if you're trying to sleep on the plane. Little overshirt. It's the equivalent. If I could take a towel with me, like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy suggests, I would. But for lack of a towel, overshirt is by far, everywhere you go, you find a use for this, having an overshirt with you. So not something that I thought of until like 2 or 3 conventions in, and I realized, and after I started doing it, I realized just how beneficial, my number one most critical thing to take with me to a board gaming convention, overshirt. Okay. Let's move over to the chat already, and let's see if we can get a good suggestion or two from the chat area. So let's start our little search here, and let's see what everyone has to say today. Kabuki Kid, good morning. One of our regulars here in the old metagame chat. Kabuki Kid mentions, be sure to have a good water filtration device, a flint to start a fire, wool blankets and socks, a sharp knife, dried fruits and nuts. Wait, that's different. Yeah, I think you may have slightly misunderstood what I meant by survival guide there, though. Yeah. Water filtration device, though. There's not even, I can't even pull anything out. Let's move on to the next comment. I will say, though, it makes my job so much easier when the audience brings their own jokes and material to the show. So I do appreciate that. Makes the episode a breeze when that happens. All right. That could be a spoiler, so never mind. All right, here's a couple of actual ones. Good shoes seem like a no-brainer. Yes, I believe Lance Meister, Undead Viking, he tells a story once about he went to, I think it might have been Origins. He went to some convention, multi-day convention in the summer. And he's like, it's the summer. And he wore flip-flops. And he said that it was one of the biggest mistakes he's ever made at a convention because his feet were just ripped up by the little thing that goes between the flip-flops, and they weren't comfortable shoes. And it was his biggest regret of the convention was wearing flip-flops instead of normal shoes at it. So make sure that you get some comfortable shoes and wear those, because the last thing you want is something like flip-flops that you have to walk around in, and you don't want to be hating it after the first day, realizing that you have 2 or 3 more days left in those shoes. Another one is keeping your wallet/money in a secure location to avoid loss or pickpockets. And that's a good one as well. And I know that pickpocketing, unfortunately, does happen at board game conventions. Year before last, I believe the Gen Con meetup for the Secret Cabal, so the one that was in 2015, I think. No, it doesn't. There was actually a actual pickpocket at their meetup taking people's wallets. I don't know if he got caught or not, but he actually did pickpocket some people there. So that's an actual thing that still happens and can happen. When I go to a convention, I throw all my fashion sense out the window. I dress for absolute comfort and convenience, which includes a fanny pack. Most often I'll put stuff in a fanny pack, even if I'm just carrying it around like a little bag, or I just know where all of my important stuff is in the hotel room. I'll throw it in this fanny pack and put that on the desk in the hotel room. So yeah, I think keeping your money and your wallet in a secure place, even if it means looking like a noob and wearing a fanny pack or something else, definitely is something to take into consideration when going to a board game convention, because unfortunately thievery does happen at board game conventions. It's just every convention there's always a story of something like that happening. And then we have here, Zachary mentions a couple, vitamin C, which is good. I agree with that one. I'll always kind of load up on Airborne before a convention. Even if it's a placebo and it has no effect, I figure it can't hurt. So I'll always load up on some Airborne, which I think has a lot of vitamin C in it before a convention, just to hedge your bets. And Zachary also mentions hand sanitizer. Yeah, having a little bottle of Purell is one of my standard carry-on things in my own luggage. I always make sure to take it, even if I don't use it, having it available right there next to the toothpaste and toothbrush in my carry-on stuff. Hand sanitizer always comes with me to a convention. And I think you might have to ask him, I think Marty Cannell of the Rolling Dice and Taking Names podcast at BGGCon last year, Marty had this neat thing. I think it was on his keyring. He had an actual Purell hand sanitizer dispenser or something that he actually had on his belt or on his keyring or something. But it seemed like he was able to just kind of quick draw it, kind of shake someone's hand, and then that person would walk away coughing into their hands, and he'd get this look of horror on his face, but then he'd just quick draw some hand sanitizer off his belt. So I'm not sure if it was where he got it or if that's exactly what it was, but if you're present on the Board Game Geek Guild for Rolling Dice Taking Names, they have an excellent forum, and it might be worth asking Marty what that thing was and where he got it if you're interested in hand sanitizer. All right. So what else is next? Well, let's talk about nourishment and staying alive. One thing at a convention that is really important to me is that 6-2-1 rule about getting at least 2 meals a day. I cannot believe how fast time goes by at a convention. I will sit down and play a couple of board games at 8, 9 in the morning, and then I'll look up and it's 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and the whole morning just zipped by. And at a convention, something about the excitement, the weird lack of sleep that you can't help but have when you're traveling to a convention, and also getting into the games, your body goes into this weird mode where you'll go through and miss entire meals and not even realize you're hungry until you're getting faint. So I always pack with me a series of snacks, and one of the best snacks that I can recommend for surviving a board game convention is, I actually grabbed the little the part of the package here, is I always take with me, I go to Costco and I load up on these little trail mix packets that they sell. And they are really useful to just give yourself some food when you're sitting at a table and you want to down something real quick. And maybe, not a whole meal, but something just to keep you going. I highly recommend these little snack trail mix packets from Costco if you don't have a nut allergy. They're really good. I also take with me some fig bars and stuff, and then also there's certain types of granola bars. And between the trail mix, the fig bars, and the granola bars, I usually have enough food with me to keep me going. And how do I pack that food around? Well, there's two ways. So the third thing on my board game convention survival list that is super important is how to pack this stuff around. And so the third thing on my list is cargo pants, which is ridiculous, or cargo shorts. But basically, I cannot go to a convention, again, throwing fashion sense out the window. I cannot go to a convention without wearing, packing exclusively cargo pants or cargo shorts. The shorts have the big, huge pockets on the sides. So you can stuff your trail mix and your snacks and everything into these cargo pants pockets on the side. Your phones if you need, your wallet sometimes, your snacks, tickets, your badge sometimes. If you're going somewhere and you don't want to be wearing your badge, you stuff it in there. So cargo pants, cargo shorts are a absolute necessity for that. And speaking of which, I'll mention that goes into my fourth thing. Then I'll go back to the comments here. There's a lot on my list here. But speaking of the badge and stuffing it into the cargo shorts, another reason that that's important is the fourth tip, board game convention survival tip, is you will get lanyard with a badge to get you in and out of the convention. I've learned always keep that on your person 100% of the time until you go to bed and put it on your stuff, your wallet and stuff, so you don't forget it. But that's another reason the cargo shorts come in so handy, because if I'm going off-site to a restaurant or something, a lot of people will take their badge and drop it off in their hotel room or something. I'll take my badge and put it into my cargo pants pocket, because every single convention, someone comes all the way back to the convention hall and gets stopped at the door to get in because they realize they've left their badge behind. And then they go and then they can't find it for a while, and then they're stuck. And I've seen this happen, and I've had it happen to me at a convention. And that's when I realized, okay, this thing does not leave my side. So make sure, my next survival tip is find a way, know where you're going to always have your badge. Know where it's always going to be, and be consistent with putting it in that spot. And if possible, keep it on your person somehow, whether tucking it under your shirt if you don't want to be wearing your badge like a geek when you go to a restaurant, or putting it in a pocket. But always find a consistent place and keep that badge on you as much as possible during the convention, even if you think you're not going to need it. Because the chances are, after you're doing what you're doing, you're going to forget and you're going to go back to the convention, and guess what? You're going to need it. So that's survival tip number 4. Protect that precious badge. All right, let's see here. Let's go back to the chat for a minute. All right. Hand sanitizer. All right, let's move on. The comments tell me that one rule I often hear, especially for new con-goers, is not to sign up for too many scheduled events. Don't pack your schedule with planned stuff. I agree. This goes back to rule number 1 for me, which is pace yourself. There's always the temptation to overbook yourself with too many events. I made that mistake the very first convention I went to. And I had events butted up one after another, and one game would go long or a tournament would go long, and I would miss the second event. So make sure that you don't overbook yourself with events, and keep some breathing room in your schedule. So that's definitely a good one, because especially for newbies, there is the temptation to overbook yourself. Okay, let's see here. Equip Kilt. Hello again. Equip Kilt's tip. Never mind. Equip Kilt mentions if the hotel room has a fridge. Oh, if the hotel room has a fridge, my brother and I save money by stocking up on items for making sandwiches and such, so we don't end up paying a lot for every meal. That's an excellent one, Equip Kilt. And let me share a little story with you from Dice Tower Con last week. The hotel that we were at had a full-size fridge in it. And I don't know if this is becoming more common, with more recent hotels, or if it's something hotels are adding. But the last two hotel rooms I've stayed in have had fridges in them, and they've been full size. It's been really, really nice. But when you go to a convention such as BGGCon, BGGCon is an awesome, fantastic convention, but it takes place at the hotel. It's pretty much connected to the airport, which means it's down by an airport, which means it's not in town, which means you have two choices for food. You can either eat at the hotel restaurant, or you can take a taxi or an Uber or hitch a ride with someone and go kind of into town, 20 minutes or more to find food. So at BGGCon, I would say the average cost of a meal is $15 per plate. It's really difficult to eat affordably at conventions at BGGCon. And other conventions are similar that are kind of in those types of locations. So at Dice Tower Con last week, my roommates and I, since our room had a fridge and a little kitchenette and stuff, we went, and sure enough, we did exactly what Equip Kilt mentioned. We went grocery shopping beforehand. They actually had a meal plan and a menu planned out, and went and got food and cooked, I'd say 99% of our meals for the week in the hotel room. And each of us chipped in towards groceries, and each of our portions was like $40 a piece for groceries. At first I was like, whoa, $40 for groceries, yikes. That's just my part, but that's okay. But I did go and treat myself the last night to the restaurant there at the hotel that was available, and I had a hamburger, and it was $17. And I realized, oh, yeah, and I did the math. I probably saved at least $150 over the course of the convention by doing the grocery shopping and not eating out for every meal. So if you have access to a fridge and you can do the grocery shopping thing, I highly recommend it. On my list, that's like definitely an honorable mention because it's not possible to do every time. But if you can, I definitely recommend doing that. You'll save so much money and time by stocking up ahead of time. And I have heard, bonus tip for this, I've heard that some hotels have mini fridges in like their stockroom available upon request. Now I've never taken advantage of this yet, but I'm considering it. But so if your hotel doesn't have a fridge by default, I've heard that sometimes you can ask for a mini fridge and at no extra charge, maybe sometimes there's an upcharge, but sometimes at no extra charge, they'll just take and put one of the mini fridges they have available, if they have any more available, into your room for the week. So you can have a mini fridge. So never hurts to ask about the availability of a mini fridge when you're checking into your hotel room at a convention either. All right, Nyrus Interactive, hello there. Nyrus was at Origins and actually was one of the people that got a Shut the Door cameo at the end of a recent Dice Tower video. So check the Dice Tower videos that went up last week, and his Shut the Door from Origins is one of them. And his cameo has an additional cameo by someone else in it, which was totally unexpected. So Nyrus says, be first in line, then you don't have to spend hours waiting for the convention to start, unless you got in line hours before registration begins. That is true. The registration lines seem to be this strange enigma, especially at BGGCon. I'm not sure why they do this, but BGGCon, in my opinion, has sort of an archaic registration system. You actually have to print out your piece of paper to pick up your badge, which is a pain if you forget to print it out and you're on the plane on the way there and you remember and you start freaking out about it, like someone I know did at BGGCon last year. Fortunately, the hotel that BGGCon is in has a print center, so you can go, and if you can log into your email there, you can print out your registration form. And they're also really nice about it. They're real helpful. But anyway, at BGGCon, they have this kind of archaic registration system where you get your little printout, and you do get in line. And even if you show up late, you're in line for 2 hours. But if you show up early to get in the front of the line, you're sitting in that line for 2 hours. So it's like this weird give and take. I'm considering experimenting with getting in line early. I've always been an early line person, trying to get near the front of the line, even if it means waiting. But I'm considering experimenting with that. So I'm curious because all of my experience has been early riser front of line experience. So I'm curious if anyone else out there listening doesn't rush to get in the front of the registration line at a convention. And what's your experience like? Does it pan out, or do you actually, even though you have to wait in line a couple hours, do you get 2, 3, 4 extra hours of gaming time in if you rush to the front of the line? So I'd be curious to find out what non-line rushers' experience is, and if it balances out or if there actually is a difference. Thank you for that, Nyrus. And Kabuki Kid, here's 2 more, then we'll go back to the next item on my list. Kabuki Kid mentions to eat on a different schedule than the rest of the crowd. That is an excellent suggestion too, actually, if you can swing it. Eating at off-peak hours can make a big, big difference. And if you're coming from like a different time zone into the convention, that can give you that edge because your eating schedule is going to be off-kilter already anyway. So it makes it easier to fudge that. So that's a good one. Let's see here. Also here, keep a couple of snacks in your pack and a bottle of water. That's good because that's going to take me back to the next thing on my list. Yes, a bottle of water is a necessity. I take a bottle of water with me wherever I go. I have a nice little bag that I carry most of my stuff around. It has a little mesh pouch for carrying a bottle of water. Just make sure that you ditch your bottle of water before you get in the security TSA line at the airport because you got to throw it away anyway. And there's been more than once that I've gone and bought my bottle of water, put it in my bag, and then had to throw it away 2 minutes later because you can't take it through airport security and got to go buy it again. So make sure you buy your bottle of water at the right time. But talking about packing snacks and packing anything, which was the other part of that comment, the other sort of piece of survival that I have are called packing cubes. And they look kind of like this. They come in different sizes. This is kind of a half-size small one. But whenever this still smells like jerky. So what I'll do is when I'm packing snacks for a convention, I'll take one of these and I'll put my trail mix, my granola bars, my fig bars, some beef jerky and stuff, and I'll put it in these and zip them up. And then what I'll do is I'll take like my socks and undergarments and shirts and my cargo shorts and everything, and I'll pack them into packing cubes. This was something that my brilliant wife taught me about while she went on a trip. And the reason why packing cubes are such a necessity for a board game convention, it's because when you're packing to or from a board game convention, air is your enemy. So what packing cubes do is they help to condense and squish out and make all your stuff as small as possible in your luggage because you get that zipper and you can squish it all down. And why this is important for a board game convention is because if you're going to one, you usually want to pack a game or you're going to be coming home with games sometimes. So being able to condense your luggage as small as possible in your suitcase is critical. Packing cubes have allowed me to come home with a couple extra games. In fact, prime example, I was able to pack a copy of a new Sherlock Holmes game that came out that was at Dice Tower Con, and a copy of not Letter Tycoon. Oh no, not Love Letter. No, Paperback. I obtained a copy of Paperback and the Sherlock Holmes game at Dice Tower Con, and thanks to the packing cubes, I was able to squish up my luggage inside enough that I was able to fit these 2 games in there without having to check a bag or crush the games or anything else. Everything made it home safe and sound. So finding ways to reduce the amount of size of your luggage and everything, like packing cubes, will let you pack more, including pack more games, including surprise games that you pick up at the convention that you realize you got to figure out how to get home. So it all kind of works together that way. Then we'll go back to the comments. That's what we'll do. You can't stop me. I'm going to the comments right now. Segueing back into the comments that we're not being stopped from going back to is Nyrus again, who mentions, take a small game with you so you can pull it out and play it any time, which goes right back into segues into Kabuki's next comment of bring a friend or spouse if possible. Yeah, having a travel buddy can be good. It also, having a travel buddy is good if you and your buddy are on the same page about how you travel and everything. And I've seen this work in cases, and I've seen it not work in some cases. So just make sure that you're both on the same page through the travel to the convention and throughout the convention itself. Travel buddies don't have to hang out together the entire time, but it's always nice to have the option. But it's also nice to go off and be able to explore on your own sometimes. Everyone's different. Anyway, though, good one, Kabuki, having a travel buddy, a friend or spouse. And then there was, comments jumped. But before it jumped, I saw a fully charged cell phone. I make sure to bring charging cables and a USB plug. Also, I have a little battery, USB plug battery that I charge up just in case I get stuck traveling or something. So yes, always having everything charged up and plenty of backup batteries. I have a whole pocket of my bag that I just fill with AA's, AAA's, and these little rechargeable USB batteries for devices. One whole pocket of my luggage is dedicated to batteries when I travel. Though I'm taking cameras and microphones and stuff with me as well, usually when I travel. All right. All right, so we've talked about snacks, and we've talked about pockets. Let's talk about one more thing to put in your pockets, which is a food, but not necessarily a snack. This is, I've lost count, but let's just say this is the 5th item on my list, and this one is absolutely a critical item, I think, and that is throat lozenges. If you're going to a convention like Gen Con, where you're going to have to talk over this din of 60,000 people nonstop for 4 to 5 days, throat lozenges make a world of difference. In fact, I recommend the Hall's honey ones that have like the coating stuff in it. It's not litmus. I can't remember the whatever it's called. By the way, the Hall's honey throat lozenges coat your throat really well and actually do make a difference. I did a little bit of an experiment. I took a couple of these every day at Dice Tower Con, and I had a podcast recording with Flip the Table on the last night of the convention. And usually by the last night of the convention, after 3 or 4, 5 days, my throat kind of sounds like this when I talk. And I sound like Milhouse's dad almost. And it's just from talking over everyone. That doesn't feel good. So taking the throat lozenges, my voice actually held up. Now, Dice Tower Con was a smaller convention, but the gaming hall was still loud and you had to talk over it. But my throat held out in just 1,000 times better with these throat lozenges. Just kind of popping those in my throat every time it started to feel a little sore. So throat lozenges can definitely help your voice hold out over the course of the convention. So that's why right there next to my batteries, every time I pack throat lozenges, a whole little package of them come with me to the conventions because they will save your throat at a board gaming convention. And there's nothing worse than trying to play a game of Pit or something and having no voice to shout with. So there's a good one. All right, let's go back to the chat here because we have James. James mentions, I have never been to a convention. Do most conventions have a place to buy snacks and or drinks? Oh, excellent question, James. Do most conventions have a place to buy snacks and or drinks? Yes, they do. Example, Dice Tower Con, you could buy little sandwiches and they were $10. So there's your answer. There is food available and drinks available, but they're usually incredibly overpriced. So if you can, packing in your own stuff helps. But if you get stuck, you can buy your way to nourishment, but it's going to be overpriced. That's been my experience. Good question, though. Thank you very much for the question, James. All right. James also asks, not a survival question, but is there a good website to go to for a list of gaming conventions? I believe that boardgamelinks.com has a list of conventions and such somewhere on their site. Big ones and small ones. I think they're trying to collect a list of as many as possible. Off the top of my head, maybe somewhere on Board Game Geek also has them, but boardgamelinks.com I think has a list of them somewhere on their site. And if anyone else knows of them, either in the chat or the comments afterwards, let us know. And hey, Mark Street's in the chat. Mark Street from Board Game Corner. You guys can't see what I'm pointing at, but I'm pointing at Mark Street's chat comment, which is an emoticon. It's very, very, very fitting and very cute. Hi, Mark. Hi. All right, we've taken a moment to welcome Mark Street to the show. And now that we have fully welcomed him, let's continue on with the next item, which was after throat lozenges, which was, let's talk about the hotel space. Because Kabuki Kid also mentioned this in the chat, to have do your best to have your hotel room on site, at least as possible to the convention center as possible. Yeah, and really, hotel rooms, for even especially the larger conventions, hotel rooms sell out in minutes. There will be such a mad scramble for hotel rooms that the sites to reserve the hotel rooms will crash. The websites will crash due to the surge in traffic. So when you are trying to obtain lodging for a convention, plan ahead and be super duper ready when the time comes to grab those hotel rooms as soon as possible. It takes a little bit of luck and a lot of planning. But when you get to the hotel, I'm going to give away a trade secret here. I'm sorry, but a very good friend of mine in the board game media production industry gave me a tip that turned my life around, which was I used to always go and get the highest room in the hotel as possible, thinking it would be quieter and easier to sleep and rest. However, when you're at a convention at the hotel, those elevators in the hotels get clogged fast, and it can add, seriously, 10, 15 minutes sometimes trying to get up and down a hotel. So if you're way up on like a 12th to 20th floor and stairs become not really an option anymore, especially when you're going up, these elevators can really eat into your time and make you late for stuff. So the tip that I obtained at a board gaming convention is when you check into your hotel, try to find the lowest floor possible to stay on. The noise actually isn't really a factor, and you'll spend so much less time in a hotel. One of the best tips recently that I've received about board gaming conventions. So lowest floor possible so you can avoid those elevators. All right, let's see here. The next item, going back to kind of another item that is a necessity, is headphones. Now, I've always been my favorite headphones have always been the over-the-ear headphones, like these. In fact, these are among my favorite headphones. And I hate the little iTunes white earbuds because they're hard plastic and they shove in your ears. And to be honest, they're either uncomfortable or they pop out of my ears. So I've always gone with these headphones instead. Hi, Mark Street, if you're still here in the chat. Okay. Anyway, so these headphones, however, these headphones are not conducive to trying to sleep on an airplane. If you're like up against the wall and you're trying to sleep, they squish into your head. Even when you're using your overshirt as a pillow to try and form around it, they still squish into your head. And so just this last week at Dice Tower Con, I gave in and tried, well, actually I stole my wife's earphones and fell in love with them, so I came back and got my own. But I converted to in-ear headphones. And the difference with these is, I'm going to rip these out of my ear if I do that. These are skull candy headphones with a squishy top. So they're not like the hard little earbuds. And these are only like $10. So these little $10 earphones were excellent for a number of reasons. One, when you're trying to sleep on a plane and you're up against that wall, there's nothing big pressing against your head, and it's a lot easier to snooze on the plane. The other thing with these are not fancy noise-canceling headphones or anything. These are just normal headphones. But I discovered that the engine noise on a plane made, when I was wearing these, my trip to Origins, I tried to watch a movie on the plane, and I could only hear every third word because there was too much noise, and I was sitting here with my headphones squished against my head trying to hear. These headphones, though, since they plug into your ears like that, by their nature, cancel out a lot of the background noise, and it was a lot easier to listen to something on the plane with these. So that was another bonus. Another bonus is about their being plugged in your ears with the noise cancellation. If your roommate at your hotel snores, these can be a great way to block out their snoring as well and actually get some sleep. And again, since they're soft, they're not really hurting your ears as much. Since they're not a big enclosure, they're easier to sleep if you kind of sleep at an angle or something and your pillow pushes them against your head. So in-ear headphones, easier to rest, easier to listen to something on while you're traveling to cancel out background noise, and also easier to cancel out your roommate's snoring background noise when you're trying to get those precious few hours of sleep. So little soft in-ear headphones have replaced the big ones for me and have become the 6th or 7th critical item to take on a board game convention. And one of the things that I never really thought of until experimenting through necessity. All right, let's go back to the old chat here to see what other incredible survival questions they have here. Alden mentions an external phone charger, which we've talked about a little bit, which absolutely is a critical one. I've noticed lots of airports and stuff have little charging stations now too. So if your stuff does start to go out, if you start to lose your battery power, you can, and you have your cords, you can plug in and charge at the airports and sometimes even on the planes. So keep an eye out. There's more and more charging stations showing up all over the place. I think the Origins Convention Center even had one. Bring a proper bag or backpack to contain things that you want to purchase or carry. Oh, yes, that's an excellent one. One moment. Hi, everyone. I'm still here. I didn't leave you. I'm just grabbing something that I saw off camera. And I'm back. Hi, Mark. Sreed. Okay, so this is something that I'll be taking with me to Gen Con in just a couple weeks. This is my carry around the convention hall bag. Thank you for reminding me about this. So this is actually a bag from Costco. I think I featured this on a recent video, but this thing is huge, like most things at Costco. But it's not paper, it's not plastic, it's this, well, it's plastic, so it's not paper though, but it's very durable, and the little handles are sewn onto it, and it's very crinkly. But this bag is full, as you see, it folds up really small, so it folds up well into the luggage. Whoop, discreet. But it's durable, and when you're walking around the convention and you want to buy games, it's an excellent type of bag to load up with games. It's definitely a necessity for any convention that you plan on buying games at. A nice, big, sturdy bag like that. And, yeah, big, sturdy bag like that. I was going to say something else about it, but I don't remember what that thing was. So, but a backpack sometimes isn't big enough. So you want sometimes a dedicated bag. And a lot of these conventions have bags, but some of them are paper and they'll rip and stuff. So you want to look for something that's either canvas or that kind of Nylar plasticky material like this. So if you can find a nice bag that condenses up small, it can be really useful when you're shopping around the convention. So that's a good one. All right, let's see here. Oh no, we jumped. Oh, I see Suzanne Sheldon from various Dice Tower productions in the chat. Suzanne, have you seen Mark in the chat? Okay, let's see here. We went backwards. Kitchens and hotels, phone charger, we're almost back. Good shoes, we've talked about that one. Thank you very much for mentioning that again. Alden mentions, at Gen Con, I'd suggest a courier bag rather than a backpack. Backpack makes it more difficult to navigate the huge crowds at Gen Con based on personal experience. Thank you. More bag tips. A courier bag. Courier. Off the top of my head, I'm not remembering what a courier bag is, what form factor it has, but I'm going to look that up. But Alden mentioned specifically a courier bag rather than a backpack. Oh, okay. Kabuki Kid mentions also, since we're in shopping mode now, investigating options to ship home your purchases you make from the con. If you end up buying a lot, avoid having to travel with it and pay that much more for checked bags. All right. Yes, let's talk about your accumulating board game goodness at the convention. And even your packing cubes aren't going to be enough to get this stuff in your luggage, and you're going to have to ship stuff home. There are several options. I have actually seen people check empty suitcases on their way to the convention, fill up the suitcase with goodies, and then have that be an extra piece of luggage that they check on their way home, which works. I've even seen people pack their regular suitcase inside this suitcase that they're going to use. So they have basically a suitcase within a suitcase on the way there. So they only have one piece of luggage essentially on the way to the convention, and then they split them apart, fill it, and have two pieces of luggage on the way back. That's an excellent way to go, depending on what your airline's bag check fees are. But that can definitely be a way to save some money. So what I do know is, what I've done is, it's not as cost effective, but I've always kind of, unfortunately, I need to plan better for this, but I've had to ship stuff home. So I know at Gen Con, which is coming up, one of the hotels that's across the street from the convention center, I apologize, I can't remember the name of the hotel, but one of them has a FedEx shipping center in it. And that's how I shipped my stuff home last year at Gen Con. And shipping the stuff home at that FedEx center, I don't know if it's just because it was at the convention center, so they were higher rates or whatever, but it was really, really expensive. It was between $50 to $70 to ship home a box of the games that I got at Gen Con. So yeah, can be really expensive. But if you find yourself in a pinch, that's what I had no extra room in my luggage. I had no extra bags to check. I had no other way to get these things home. There is a FedEx shipping center, at least there was a year ago, in one of the hotels across the street from the Gen Con Convention Center in Indianapolis. So that's one option. At Origins, if you're at Origins next year, they have within walking distance, in one direction is a UPS store, and the other direction, about a block and a half, 3 blocks, is a FedEx shipping center. So there are UPS and FedEx shipping centers in each direction. If you use one of these shipping centers, I find myself usually shipping home stuff near the end of the convention. So if you could be looking for a place to ship on a Friday night or Saturday or a Sunday. So do your research ahead of time. As soon as you know that you are going to need to ship something home, start doing your research and find out what the hours are of the place you're going to ship from. Because when I was at Origins, I also had to ship something home. And by the time it was late enough in Origins that the UPS store was closed that day, that time, but the FedEx one was still open. So I rushed to the FedEx one after walking halfway to the UPS one. I figured it out. I walked to the FedEx one and got there just in time. So not only figure out what your plan A and plan B for shipping stuff home is, but also make sure that that service you're going to utilize is available and open when you're planning on shipping stuff. And I might try the bag within a bag option. I'm not sure. I need to look. Like I said, sometimes the airline's additional bag check fees can be just as much as shipping stuff home. And there's also weight restrictions to be careful for. I have literally seen another person at a convention on the scale with literally 2 to 3 ounces left of weight before they couldn't have checked their bag because it was almost too heavy because it was crammed full of games. But they were literally within ounces of having their bag be too heavy. So keep that in mind. All right, here. Alden also mentions Look over the exhibition hall map ahead of time and mark the booths that you want to check out the most. You'll spend less time wandering around that way. That's especially useful because lots of times at a large convention, just from the production cycles, a vendor or publisher might only have a very limited number of copies of the games that are coming out at their booth. They literally could have a couple dozen at most sometimes. So sometimes it's very necessary to strategically plan which booths you're going to hit first to be able to go by their booth while they still have the games you want. I remember at Gen Con last year trying to get a copy of Ashes and never making it over to Plaid Hat's booth in time to get a copy of Ashes that they had that day. And the worst part, when I got on the plane on the way home, I got my seat on the plane, and this guy walks down the aisle carrying his copy of Ashes and walks right next to me and gets in the seat in the row behind me. So they had him, and a guy got him, and he had it on the plane. The whole trip home, I had to think about that. But I've moved on. And before we go back to the next thing on my list, another mention here, in all caps even, is breath mints. Yes, that's definitely one. Especially if you have these weird on-the-go meals. Breath mints. Every day, several times a day, that thought crosses my mind at a convention of, man, I wish I had breath mints to offer to other people. Just something about the board game environment, board game convention environment, is conducive to needing breath mints. So that's a good one. And I'm not saying that everyone else stinks. I'm sure I also stink in many breathy ways. But breath mints are definitely a good one. Okay, I'm embarrassing myself now. So let's talk about. Let's see. We talked about the rooms and the elevators. We're almost out of time. So the last thing on my list that I'm going to mention is we're talking about having a travel buddy. And sometimes you don't have a travel buddy, but you meet up with people there. But the main thing is, if at all possible, try to find a roommate that you are compatible with. Having a roommate that you're compatible with in terms of when you guys like to be in the hotel rooms, how your morning routines mesh, what you like to do in the rooms, how much time you like to spend there. Having that can be a very, very helpful thing and reduce a lot of potential stress at a convention. Now, I've been fortunate. I've traveled with different groups and stuff to conventions, a family and colleagues, and I have been really lucky because I've always gotten roommates that I'm really compatible with. But there is one roommate, though, the one that made me realize this. After having a few different roommates, there's one roommate I had who I look forward very much to potentially being his roommate again, because he and I seem to be kind of similar. Basically, in the mornings and the evenings, get into the hotel room, kind of wind down a little bit, check our phones or iPads and just kind of maybe chat for a couple minutes. But, the TV's not on, people aren't coming in and out. Nobody's eating, microwave snacks at 3 a.m. None of that stuff. It's just this roommate and I seem to be very compatible in the way, even when we go get meals in the morning and stuff, kind of our routines seem very compatible. And I actually really have enjoyed being this person's roommate a lot. And it made me realize how much stress of the trip I don't have. I'm not worried about anything related to the hotel room or the meals or the morning routine or making sure to get enough sleep. And all of that potential stress just melts away every time I'm this person's roommate at a convention. And I really appreciate that. And I really look forward to hopefully having bunking with the same person again at the next conventions that we go to. So having a compatible roommate can be critical for making your trip stress-free or at least stress-reduced throughout the multiple days. Because as you're going through this convention, you'll start to get a little fried. And every advantage you can give yourself to not stress out and just lose it is going to be beneficial. All right, let's pop over to a few more things over here in the old Chatteroony. And I'm going to refresh my search. All right. People talking about catching Pikachus. What's that all about? As someone who spends a lot of time on the internet, I have not seen anything about this Pokemon stuff. So that is a surprise to me. Let's see, we're good shoes. We went backwards a little bit. We're talking about shipping home. Map. Breath mints. Here we go. Have a reasonable amount of cash on you. Yes. At a convention, I actually do, even if I don't use it, I do go and get some extra cash out of the ATM. I actually set aside cash budget for it in my convention planning. And again, even if I don't spend it, every now and then you run into a situation, you're right, you run into a situation where you have to use cash. And so when you're traveling at a convention, being able to have a little bit of that and keeping it safe. Again, this goes back to making sure that you know where everything is at all times. But that's definitely something. Don't depend on credit cards all the time. Let's see, demoing. Beware of bad game teachers when doing demos because you may be there for a few hours. Ouch. But yeah, that's true. Yes. Nyrus mentions, find a new friend to play games and hang out with. I find this is the best way to experience a convention. That's definitely, that's one of the best things about the convention is the meeting all the people and making those new relationships and acquaintances at a convention. So that's definitely one of the ways to go. Here, another one, talking about cash versus credit at a convention. Alden mentions, 2 years ago, I made a purchase at a booth at a convention using my debit card. And after the convention, I noticed a charge for foreign money exchange. My $70 game ended up costing me $77, and I wish I had used cash. That is an excellent point. We haven't even talked about international travel. Yes, people who are traveling internationally, yes, credit and debit card purchases can add that extra layer with the exchange rate. So that definitely can end up costing you more that way as opposed to cash. Adam of Adam's Board Games Wales mentions, there was no tag in here, but you guys don't care. How do you feel about people carting enormous crates of games? Always the bane of my convention experience. Constantly getting in my way, primarily because I'm carting a massive wheelie suitcase myself. Well, I think you answered the question as well. I think it's a necessary evil sometimes. Being cognizant of the stuff that you're carrying, though, when I'm carrying my big old Costco bag full of games around the floor at Gen Con, I try to crumple up as much as possible. Not only because I'm trying to keep my precious games as close to my body as I possibly can, but also just trying not to get in other people's way. And really, sometimes there's not going to be anything that you can do about that. So trying to be as polite as possible and just trying to, not get in the way, but also make sure that other people, you are nice to them when you get in their way. That can go a long, long way to making the convention a lot more experienceable positively. There's a word there that I missed. I'm not sure what that word was supposed to be. But let's move on. Kabuki Kid mentions to wear astronaut diapers to avoid needing restrooms during hardcore gaming sessions. Hashtag TMG, parentheses, no, please don't really do this. Now you tell me not to. That would explain, though, a lot of my experience at Dice Tower Con and why I always had the ring of tables around me were empty. But so astronaut diapers. Let's put that on the maybe list, but probably not a thing to do. Joseph mentions, I've had to get earplugs because of snoring roommates at cons. Yes, there's something about a con that just makes people want to snore, isn't there? So I definitely recommend some way to block that out. Excuse me. Suzanne mentions, bring baggies if you're buying games because no one sells them at conventions. Oh, yes. Little plastic baggies for components. You open up that new game or you're getting meeples or something else. That's a good one, Suzanne. that you're always come up short. In fact, when I was packing for my trip home, I had one big plastic bag, and I had to dump all the components from like 4 different games into this one big bag and then sort them out when I got home because I didn't take Suzanne's advice, and I didn't bring baggies, and I regretted it even more than wearing those astronaut diapers. So baggies, make sure that you bring extra ones. They don't take much space in your luggage, and you'll want them if you're picking up games at a convention. Bravissimo, Suzanne. Let's see here. Who's Mark? I think I lost my search. We'll find one more excellent question here, and then we'll pack up. So, oh, and the YouTube comments really skipped. Oh, that's a good one. Okay. All right. Here's 2 questions. Megan, hi Megan, asks, is it possible to travel to and from a gaming convention without checking a bag? Just curious. Yes, it is. In fact, I don't like to check the bags because I want to get to the convention as soon as possible. I don't want to have to wait on the little luggage thingy after the plane ride. So when you're going on a plane, you can take 2 bags. One, you can take like your purse or your man purse or whatever. You can take a bag on you that can fit under the seat. And you can take a suitcase, which is usually 19 by 14 by 12 inches or something. That's pretty much a standard size for suitcases these days. Not the huge ones, but the smaller ones. So if you take one of those bags, one of those suitcases, and a normal bag of some sort, you can take both of those with you on the plane. The suitcase goes in the overhead bin, and your little bag goes in the chair seat under the chair in front of you. And if you can travel that light, you won't have to check your bag at all. You can have your bags with you at all times. It makes traveling through the airports and everything so much faster. What I'll do usually is I'll do that on the way to the convention, but then on the way home from the convention, where I'm like, I don't have to worry about my bag anymore as much. If it gets lost, I'm going home anyway, and I got more clothes and everything at home. I will check my bag usually if you get up to the gate, they will offer to check your bag at that point for free. So what I'll do is on the way home, my very first flight on the way home, I'll check my bag, and even if I have a connecting flight, my bag, I don't have to find it. My bag makes it to my final destination back in Eugene. So on the way home, I'll check my bag at the very first gate I come to before I get on the plane. Then I don't have to worry about it on my way home, pick it up in Eugene's airport when I get back home. So that's the way I do it with the bag checking when I'm going to a convention. So I hope that helps. And the last question I wanted to get to was from Drell1 Core, who mentions, you can even ask if the vendor could ship the items for additional shipping, which is a really good point. Some vendors, and even those sometimes, will actually offer shipping options at the convention. For example, Cool Stuff Inc. at Dice Tower Con had an offer where for $17, they would give you this box, and you could put your games that you bought from them, games that you bought from someone else, anything in your life, anything that you want. If you had an extra shirt that you didn't want to carry all the way home, you could put your shirt, anything at all that you wanted to, you could put in this box, and they would ship it home to you for $17. And compared to the other, I don't know if that was a Dice Tower exclusive deal that they do, but it was fantastic because compared to the cost of shipping something from FedEx or checking extra bag, that $17 to fill a box with whatever you want, as much as you want, was an excellent bargain. So keep an eye out for those types of offers, shipping offers from vendors and stuff at conventions, because if that offer comes up, it can save you a metric ton of time and money. Speaking of time and money, it's time for us to go back to the real world and spend our time doing what we got to do to put board games on the table. And food too, I guess. So I want to thank everyone who has taken their time to join us in this live chat about board game survival. I hope that this episode contained some tips that actually maybe weren't as obvious, that maybe were new ones that we hadn't thought of before, and actually were helpful tips that can make your travel and convention time experience that much easier. So we'll wrap it up, and that's going to be all for now. But until our next episode, in the meantime, hey, there we go. Be sure to subscribe to both the Dice Tower and the Pair of Dice Paradise YouTube channels for more board game news and board game reviews and commentary, such as this one. And be sure to follow us on the social media sites like Facebook and Twitter as well to keep these conversations going. But in the meantime, I'm going to end this conversation by saying that once again, I've been Chaz Marler's evil twin. And thank you so much, chat, for playing this episode of the Metagame with me. I'll talk to you all again soon.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.